Yes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Through storytelling and conversational interviews, this weekly radio show offers listeners first-hand insight in starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people. Connect with Kerry through her candid, often funny, and informative weekly blog, where you'll read and comment on life as wife, mother, daughter, and entrepreneur. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
I'm Kerry McCoy, and it's time for me to get all up in your business. By that I mean to say, share my business knowledge and wisdom with you, our listener. For the next hour, my guest, a fellow entrepreneur, will be discussing how we maneuvered the path of leadership and entrepreneurship in pursuit of our dreams. Now, you may be asking yourself, what qualifies this lady to do this? And the answer is easy: experience. I started my company, Arkansas Flag and Banner, over 40 years ago. During the last 4 decades, Arkansas Flag and Banner has grown and morphed from door-to-door sales to telemarketing to mail order and catalog sales, and now relies heavily on the internet. Each change in sales strategy required a change in company thinking and procedures. My wisdom, confidence, and my company grew. My initial $400 investment now produces nearly $4 million in annual sales. In this next hour, you will hear a candid conversation between me and my guest about real-world experiences of determination and luck. Today's topics will be how to open your own gym, choose the best exercise for yourself, and relieve pain without surgery or pills. Starting and owning a business is like so many things. It takes persistence, perseverance, and patience. I worked part-time jobs for 9 years before Arkansas Flag and Banner grew enough to support just me. It's now grown and expanded so much that to operate efficiently, we require, are you ready? A purchasing, manufacturing, graphic, shipping, technology, accounting, marketing, sales, and customer service department, plus a retail store. 25 people make their living from working at Arkansas Flag and Banner. My guest today is personal trainer Jean-Paul Francoeur, a.k.a. JP. He is one of the top fitness authorities in Arkansas and beyond. In 2008, JP sold his thriving high-end health club atop the TCBY Tower building in downtown Little Rock and recreated himself when he became the golf performance and functional training specialist at Alotian Golf Club. Today, he is a certified ARPwave therapist helping people from all walks of life with their injuries and chronic pain. He's been featured in Parade magazine twice, as well as in USA Today. He is a freelance writer for health magazines and websites, having been published in both Men's Health and Best Life, just to name a few. He was a top fitness advisor to former Governor Mike Huckabee's well-publicized weight loss program, Stop Digging Your Grave with a Knife and Fork, and served as chairman of the Arkansas Governor's Council on Fitness for 8 years. It is my pleasure to welcome to the table a man that has dedicated his life to helping others through physical fitness, my friend and once my personal trainer, Jean-Paul Francoeur.
Hello.
You were a personal trainer before most people even knew what that job description was.
I was kind of an early adopter. But first, I just have to say, 40 years? What were you one when you started that business?
Thank you, JP.
I'm serious. Like, my gosh, you have not aged, you know?
It's from personal trainers like you.
It must be, because I'm amazed.
Thank you. Can you tell us how you first began your career in the industry?
Well, I was actually 19 years old, and I was living in Massachusetts at the time, and I was taking a year off from college because I was here at UALR, and my education was actually all in fine arts. I was a classical guitar major. But when I took a year off and I went up to Massachusetts and I got a job doing, of all things, I was a mechanic in a factory making plastic bottles and caps. At that time, I'd been an athlete my whole life. You know, I was a wrestler and I ran track. I was a pole vaulter, you know.
From where?
Upper East Tennessee. Yeah, in high school. And so I'd just been in athletics my whole life. And so I got a little out of shape my freshman year. I delivered pizza and I got a little doughy. And, so 19 years old, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. And so I went to a gym. I did not know anything about actually weight training. And I started researching it, and I found a program that I thought I would like. I found a couple of people in the gym who looked like they knew what they were doing. and got some help and started training and got just in ridiculous good shape. I mean, within 2 or 3 months, I was so lean. I needed a Q-tip to clean out the grooves between my abs. It's like just transformed myself. And it felt great, and I was doing well with it, but I apparently got some attention. So this ophthalmologist who worked out at the gym was like, how did you do that? And I was like, well, I did this, this, and this. And he was like, well, can you help me? And so I got like some rudimentary certification at the time. It's probably nothing accredited. I don't even remember what it was. But that was how I started my first personal training. And I was 19, and I was charging a whopping $15 an hour. So, and based on my actual knowledge and experience at the time, I can tell you I was highly overpaid. But I was passionate about it. It really came natural to me, and I didn't realize I was a patient teacher. But when it came to fitness, I was always very patient. I could watch somebody, and it was kind of a tacit understanding of movement. I could see that where they were loading and tell if they were doing it right or not. And so I started coaching people and started helping people. I ended up with like 3 clients and was making pretty good money on the side doing it. And when I moved back to Arkansas, I was able to get my scholarship back. And when I came back here, my first job was working at a Gold's Gym for David Basil. And that's how I met David. So he and I have known each other since I guess it was 1987 or 8. And, he had just opened up a couple of Golds in Little Rock, some partners. And he was a really great sort of mentor, because you can't help but admire the guy. I mean, he's just got such a great personality, and he is just as genuine and sincere a guy as you could ever meet. And so he really kind of took me under his wing, because I guess he saw that I was passionate about it, and he helped get me involved in Special Olympics. I started coaching Special Olympics athletes. A couple of my athletes made it to the international games, which apparently is a little more competitive to get into that than you would realize. And they actually did well. Like one of them got a second place, and the other one got 2 third-place medals. So they did really well.
People don't realize how important it is when you're young to move around and do things, because you never know where it's going to lead.
And even though I didn't keep that up, I have to say that was a very important early experience in my career. First of all, just giving something back, just being sort of community-oriented. I wasn't getting paid to do that, but I loved it. And it was just building more experience for me. Loved that experience, loved working at Gold's. It was a tough place to sell memberships because they didn't have an air conditioner in the weight room.
What?
So summer times were a little bleak, but I think I showed early signs of sort of entrepreneurialism at the time, because I was the only person who really took the place seriously. Like during my shift, that weight room was impeccable. Everything was organized. I liked to present myself professionally, and so it was just little things, but I just made sure that the place was presentable so that when I took people in and I started trying to help them, that they had a nice professional atmosphere.
You can almost pick out the entrepreneurs in your life if they're the person that picks up the piece of paper that's on the floor and puts it in the trash can that's right next to it. You're like, okay, that person's a self-starter. I notice that when I'm training my employees, the ones that walk past stuff all day long, I'm like, that one's not going to be the leader.
Not in their job description and they don't do it.
But the ones that see the issue, just a piece of trash by the trash can and pick it up and put it in there, there's something in that personality trait that you had that I see in entrepreneurs all the time. And
so early on, I really loved what I was doing, and I was getting a lot of good experience. And I was there for many years. I don't remember how long. I started getting more into, I was researching all kinds of stuff. After that Special Olympics experience, I was researching people living with AIDS, and I had this theory.
Was AIDS already a thing?
Well, back then, what
year was that?
This is we're talking 1988, 89. I read that AIDS was an opportunistic infection. So that
what does that mean?
It means that people were vulnerable to viruses and stuff like that. They can't, like a normal virus, their immune system was compromised.
I gotcha.
So if I had this theory that if someone took excellent care of their health, really watched what they ate and really took care of themselves, worked out, obviously carefully, but worked out, and they could actually have a really healthy lifestyle and possibly extend their lives.
Even if they had AIDS.
Even if they had AIDS, yes.
Right.
And so I just, honestly, I still, to this day, I kind of wonder how I got into some of these situations, because I did not know the first thing about it. But me, I was half-cocked, and I just went out there to the Ryan White Center and asked to speak to some of their nutritionists and doctors and made a presentation to them, and they liked it, and they said, well, hey, we'd like to purchase your services. And so they wanted me to train a group of people as kind of a controlled experiment training some of these people who had AIDS or HIV. And I thought it was a wonderful opportunity, and it was very lucrative. I mean, they were like paying me $3,000 a month, which at the time was a lot of money.
Some people wouldn't even want to be around AIDS people at those times back then.
Yeah. Well, and that's because they were not educated about it. And that's actually, the story kind of takes a turn that direction. So I go to the manager and I explain, hey, I'm going to get a corporate membership for these guys. They're going to pay in advance for about 15 people to have memberships here at the gym, and it was a good deal for the gym. And and they were going to bust them in literally from Pine Bluff, from the Ryan White Center, 3 days a week to work with me. They were all fine with it. And now my philosophy has always been just one of inclusion. Like, I don't care if you're crippled. I had a guy in a wheelchair that I worked with. I don't care if you're overweight. I mean, I'm not, the training at the time was very ego driven. It was a lot of bodybuilders. And so trainers were thinking at that time, if you weren't competing, you weren't legit. And this is, late 80s. And I just thought that was laughable, because the last thing I wanted to do was get in a banana hammock and cover myself in barbecue sauce and flex my muscles in front of a bunch of, fetishists. Really, it's just the most bizarre thing in the world to me. And I don't mean to make fun of bodybuilding. It's I wouldn't call it a sport. It's more of a pageant. But that was the training industry at the time. And that was the environment that I was in, and I was trying to change it. I was like, I think that the way fitness really belongs to everyone. Everybody needs to learn how to take care of themselves and be healthy. So, and I didn't care what your problem was or what your and if you were a overweight person or if you had I wanted everybody.
If you had AIDS, you didn't care. So Gold's Gym. I bet you got some pushback from the people.
Well, this was at the Gold's in Southwest Little Rock, and it was the thing is, the group was sort of odd. We literally had there was a gay couple. One of the guys had such severe neuropathy that he couldn't even take a full step. He was so limited, and I'll say within 3 months he was able to do a full lunge.
From your working out with him?
Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I was still getting results. But a lot of it's just experimentation and stuff like that, trial and error, but we had a. it was an eclectic group of people, to say the least. And I did not care. I welcomed it. I was like, this is great. This is, these people come from all walks of life. There was, this is life. This is life.
There is life.
And so I took them in. They all came in. They met me, and I worked them out. I spent a little time kind of talking to them as a group about, just lifestyle and really trying to educate them on how to think about taking better care of themselves, and not in a preachy sort of make better choices kind of thing, but more in a let's just figure out how to take better care of your body, take care of your health. And
so did they stay long?
Well, it was a year contract.
Oh, good.
I started getting blowback from the members, so people started to kind of complain. And I guess somebody found out, or not that there was. I don't think we ever tried to conceal it, but it got out among the population that the group that I was training was people living with AIDS. And so the manager pulled me into the office one day, and he said, we're going to fire you. And I was like, why? They didn't really have a reason. He said they're a private gym. They have the right to, fire anybody they want. And they didn't, but they were very careful not to say that they were going to block them. So I knew what it was about immediately. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be fired, and I'll just buy a membership, and I'll just continue to train these people. It's like, no, we have the right to bar you from buying a membership. It's a private gym. We can have the right to not, sell you a membership. So basically, they just, this group that had paid all this money to the gym was cut off because they weren't going to go there without me. I kind of protected them a little bit. They were safe while I was there.
And you were their personal trainer.
Right. And plus, of course, the main thing is they were there to train with me. And so they fired me from the gym. And I just said, you know what? This is such BS. And this is outright discrimination, and I'm just going to go open my own place. And I just remember him saying, "You just do that," And so I left. I went and I started kind of working around. I was working in several gyms. I think I was briefly at Powerhouse. I was at the War Memorial, and I just kind of hit a few different fitness centers. I ended up working at the YMCA for a while downtown. While I'm doing all this, I had left gym. Well, I was the only person who really worked on that place, and and I didn't snitch on anybody, but there was a lot of backdoor contracts being cash exchange kind of stuff going on. I mean, the place was just destined to fail, and
Oh yeah.
And it was owned by a doctor of all things, and I actually called the doctor about the fact that they were discriminating, and I said, you should be ashamed of yourself. Being a doctor, you should know better. This is not, you're discriminating against people who really need this. And,
right.
And that's what's the whole purpose of having a health club.
Right.
And he said, I'm not used to having people, talk to me like this. He was a real, jerk. Anyway, long story short, within a year, I think, maybe a little more than that, I was ready to open up my own club. And again, a lot of the problems that I ran into is I'm so sort of passionate about what I do, and I'm adamant about what I do, that I kind of take over the room, so I was sort of stepping on people's toes everywhere I went, because I was, I had a real clear vision of what I wanted to do, and it just, it clashed with people. So they had a couple of fitness specialists at the Y who were fresh out of college, just had their little wellness degrees, and they were people were coming to me more and more for the training. And for questions, and I was teaching a class there. I started teaching a class on nutrition. I started teaching, just a kind of a general fitness class. But the trainers in there wanted me out because they were, they just, I guess I was stepping on their toes. Yeah, they were threatened. And I was training a lawyer who's actually a judge now. Do you know Barry Sims? He was a good friend, and he was a real motivation to me. And he was like, JP, I think it's time. You've been talking about this with me in the gym. He's like, I think it's time for you to, open up your own place. And I was like, scary, and he's like, and he actually gave me a saying that I still use to this day. He said, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And I was like, I love that. So that was my mantra. Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And so I just threw myself into it headlong. I didn't care. I didn't know how to write a business plan. I went out and bought a book on writing a business plan. And I wrote a business plan. And I started hitting banks and going everywhere I could. And didn't get much. My first gym was actually in the Lafayette building. And so I convinced the YMCA to let me stay on until December, which gave me like 3 months to put my business together. And I was really operating on a deadline. I couldn't afford to miss work. I couldn't afford to not have a place to train. So I was, literally Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I was working until 1 a.m, like pulling down walls and mudding sheetrock and everything.
For your new gym.
For my new gym, yeah.
Let's take a break now. And when we come back, I want to find out how you got the money for the gym and how you started on that. So when we come back, we're going to find out how he started the gym, how you could start a gym, what he thinks is the best form of exercise for you, because there's lots of options, and his new venture he's doing, which is the ARPwave, which relieves pain without surgery or pills. We all need that. I haven't even gotten to the good part of this story. Wait till you hear the karma.
No. So yeah, there's a little karmic debt to this story for the people. I love karmic for Gold's Gym. So I'm in the process of trying to find equipment, which is extremely expensive. I'm moving forward with this thing. I have no idea if I'm going to get some of these things. I signed a lease before I even secured money. I was committed. I thoroughly committed myself to this. So in the process of trying to find equipment for the gym, which I realized very quickly I probably wasn't going to be able to afford, well, it turns out that Gold's Gym went out of business, unfortunately.
You got their equipment.
I got to go into him, and I was like, yes, I would like that piece and that piece and that piece, because I'm opening up. Did I mention I'm opening up my own gym?
Oh.
Because he was like, you just go do that. Well, I did, and I opened up a facility that, since it was mine, it was completely in line with my philosophy. I had no one else to tell me, that I couldn't, have people living with AIDS, or I couldn't have somebody with some sort of disabilities or what. It seems ridiculous to me that anybody would want to try to block access to those kinds of facilities to people, but that was what was going on. I bought out all their used equipment. I had a local body shop. I just took it all down there and I had them sand it and spray it. And, because I wanted everything a certain color. And I kind of had the sort of muted green colors with the big mirrors and everything. I bought all that used equipment, and it looked brand new. I mean, you remember my facility? It was slick. I mean, it looked like a $100,000 club, and everybody thought I just really, oh wow, you've really done it. You really made it, man. I did all the work myself. So I think I had like $1,500 on a credit card, and I was able to round up $16,000, and it was an SBA loan.
Were you still working your other job at the Y?
Sort of, yeah. I was working up until that last week, and because I had a small handful of clients, and I had like 4 clients at the time, and I was surviving off of that. But, for my gym to make it, I had to have 4.8 clients to break even. I was based on my business plan, which isn't much, and then I gave myself till the end of the year to have 12 clients, and that's just me charging I think at the time, like $30 or $35 a session. It was really, not that much money, but I was doubling what most trainers were charging at the time because I just, was trying to do something different.
Well, you had a note to pay.
Yeah. And so.
And I don't think there was very many trainers like you.
Definitely not at the time. I think there are more now.
Oh, there's a lot now.
But at the time, I was definitely the first, personal training sort of studio to open up in Little Rock.
And you opened up in the Lafayette building.
Yeah, Lafayette building.
And that's where I first met you because I read about you in the Parade magazine,
right.
which is a national publication.
Yeah, they did this thing on entrepreneurs under 30.
And you were in there, and my neighbor came over and said, did you see this guy that's here in Little Rock that they did an article about in Parade magazine, this national publication? She said, let's go down and see if we might want to start training.
Oh, I remember. Yeah,
Kay, remember Kay Woods?
Yeah.
And she quit. She didn't come very many times, but I started coming, and I got my husband to start coming.
That was so and I trained you and Grady for I don't know how many years. So.
Years.
Yeah. So, but
we moved with you to the top
all the way up to when I was in the Metropolitan Tower or the TCBY Tower,
which I have to say I thought was a bad idea when you were doing it. Because there was no parking, and I thought,
that was a tough.
So let's just tell the listeners that you were down at the Lafayette building where you'd started your gym. I didn't realize your gym was so new when I started coming there. I thought you were an old pro.
No,
and then
I was good at looking that way.
You were. You convinced me. And then in this interview, I'm finding out more than I even realized. And then after about a year, I think you got a chance to move up to the
lobby area. Yeah, moved up into the main lobby.
And after that, you moved up to the
Metropolitan Tower.
I thought it was TCBY.
Well, it was TCBY, I think, at the time, but it turned into the Metropolitan Tower within
And what
a year.
floor were you on?
29th floor.
See, I thought that would be too hard for a personal trainer, but it turned out to be really, really good.
It was nice. It was pretty.
So talk about how that move happened, that you went from all the way.
It was more than a year. I opened my club in 1992. Down in the Lafayette building, and I was there until 2000, and then I moved to the Metropolitan Tower in 2000, and then I was there for 8 years before I sold it. And honestly, you were talking about advising people on how to open up their own gym. I don't know that I would ever advise anybody to do that. It's a tough business, unless you are just like, I can't do anything else. I'm just wired to do this. I've been self-employed since I was 19. And, I've taken little part-time jobs here and there, but I've always sort of worked, if not for myself, then at least, in the same spirit of working for myself. Anytime I'm working somewhere, I put myself fully into it. Reputation is everything. And
it certainly is. Please say that again.
Reputation is everything.
It is everything.
And it takes 20 years to build a good reputation and 10 minutes to ruin it.
You are so right on.
So I was very adamant about following. I had very strict sort of protocols for myself or principles that I followed, ethical standards that I followed. But, when it comes to opening a gym, they're not very profitable.
Are they not? You had trainers there? How did you pay trainers there?
Well, I grew. Okay, so I remember that first year I said I needed 12 by the end of the year to be making
You had 12 clients?
Yeah, I needed 12 clients to be making $60-something thousand a year.
Okay.
I was past 12 within the first 3 weeks. And then Arkansas Times did a big story on me, and I had 30-something clients before I knew it. I had to hire trainers. I was like, I can't do all this by myself. So so I started hiring more and more trainers. I had a really good crew that stuck with me for a long time when I was in the Lafayette building. And then I just kept kind of growing, and some of it was the Thomas Plummer is a guy in my industry. He said something that stuck with me in one of his seminars. He said, if your business, and this can apply to any business, but he said it because he said if your gym is not growing, it's dying. And I was like, you can just say that pretty much about business. If your business is not growing, it's dying. And so, but I just wanted to do what I love to do, which is to help people individually. I like working one-on-one or with groups.
You're service-oriented.
And I love to take care of people, and I love to help them. And I ended up creating a job, and I ended up being more of a manager, and I hated that, and I was miserable. So about the first 6-something years, I was loving it. I had a blast, and it was great. I made great money, and then I started getting kind of burned out. I started doing more management type stuff. I was hiring more trainers. I was spending more time sort of taking care of employees and not, and so by the time I got to the Metropolitan Tower, I was going full on actual business. I actually had a sales staff. I had, front desk staff. I had, I had trainers. I had, group fitness instructors, and I had
nutritionalist. I had a nutritionalist.
I had 20 employees at one time.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did. It was just we were I'd gotten pretty big, but the irony is the amount of I wasn't making that much more money. My break even just was ridiculous. My rent was high. I had insurance. All the different things. Taxes were just killing me. It's it's expensive to run one of those places. And everything just chips away. Everybody wants to take their little tiny piece of your business away. And so by the time it was all done, I was like, I wasn't getting out of it what I was putting in energy wise. I didn't feel rewarded and refreshed and replenished. And then in 2008, I went through a divorce, unfortunately, and it was just kind of like that. It was like that final straw. I just did not have the widgets at that point to continue. I was like, I got to get out of this thing. So, I just wanted to do something different. And I really thought I was going to get out of fitness. I was just going to leave the industry. And for about 6 months, maybe, I was a spine rep. I actually sold implants to, to surgeons. I was watching people get spine surgeries, which was actually a really great experience. I loved it. I loved being in the OR, and I loved watching surgeries. And it was a good experience for me to kind of learn, why I would never want to go into the knife. But B, it's the people who were having the injuries aren't, these young athletic people. It was, it was people who just never took good care of themselves.
Why do you never want to go into the knife?
Man, it's invasive surgery. Watching those, spinal fusions and stuff. They pull apart the spinous process. They take it all. They cut away the foramen. They take these things called a cob, and they cob the muscles away from the bone. And then they go in there and clear out all the disc space, and then they put in the disc, the cadaver bone or whatever, and the disc and the bone glue. And I remember asking one of the doctors, I'm like, does that muscle ever reattach to the bone? And he said, no, but they don't really need it. And I'm like, what? And he said, well, the only reason they need that is to stabilize that joint, and they don't need, since their bone is going to be fused, they don't need the muscle to stabilize it. And I was like, it was like, oh my God. So, as a trainer, the trainer of me was freaking out. And, I thought that was horrible.
They need that muscle.
Yeah, you need that muscle. And
I don't care what you say. You need that muscle.
Well, but also these people weren't exactly, they were, the people who were getting injured were generally very sedentary, and they were, overweight, and they were, a lot of them were drinkers. Their bone quality was really bad. They didn't, they had they might have osteoporosis. Some of these guys, I remember this guy that we were watching his surgery. He had his bone just broke away like powder. It was he's a bad alcoholic. And I was like, so these are the people that typically are needing to go in and get back surgery. So it's not like, these guys were exactly, healthy, fit, active people. And so they're not really returning to a healthy, fit, active lifestyle. But I just,
I want to know, you said you didn't really want to go back into the gym business. And I think you ended up doing what so many people do is they love what they're doing, like working people out or making pies or whatever the part of the business they love that they're good at, and then they start to grow, and then they don't get to do that anymore because they end up in the back office. Like all I do is all I do now is human resources. Exactly. I hire, train, and fire people. That's really all I do.
That's what I ended up doing, and I was not happy.
And I'm a teacher. Not really, but I am a teacher. No, you are. And that's why I started this radio show, so I could get that fulfillment in me of paying forward.
I totally get it. So What ended up happening, though, is I quickly figured out that okay, there were 52 doctors at the time who used those implements, used the surgical implements and the inserts that, the implants that we sold. There were about 90-something reps, and there were about 10 in the state who were making all the money. So I mean, it was great money. If you could even get like a case or two a day or 3-4 cases a week, you were making money. But it was really hard to get those because the gatekeepers were very difficult to get past. So I kept getting people, asking me to come back to training, and I was like, no, I'm out of that. And I had one particular client that, a friend or whatever, that somebody wanted me to train them, just kept saying, JP, train me, please. And I'm like, at the time I left, I think I was charging like $65 a session. I think the average in Little Rock was around $50. And he said, what would it take for you to train me?
Wow.
And I literally, I just
$1 million.
No, I was realistic. I really thought about it. What would it take for me to be energized, for the amount of energy and intensity and everything that I put into a client? What would give me enough return to make me feel like I'm getting something out of it, to be able to want to come back to this and to bring back that passion that I had for me to be, to really do a great job and show up and be present and really work them and not just phone it in, and be burned out. And I said $150 a session. And I figured it was just ridiculous. I just tripled the usual rate.
Yeah.
And I was like, $150 a session. He said, done. I was like, really? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, within, I don't know, like a couple of months, I had a full clientele at that rate. And I was like, it just sort of happened like weird. It was just really weird. So, but I wasn't training people in a gym. I had a bunch of equipment that you can go to the back of my car right now. I still have it. I got bands and sandbags and kettlebells and all that stuff. And I was, and some of my clients have nice home gyms, but I literally was just going from client to client to their homes and training them. And
with the more stretchy rubber bands and
the jump stretch, the resistance training bands. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I like those.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And, I had them at the gym, I guess, because I remember I used to torture you and Grady with those things.
Yeah, a little bit.
And, so I just train people in their homes.
Let's take another quick break. We've probably got time for one more. We're going to learn about, we may not get a chance to talk to JP about what his favorite form of exercise is, because that could be a whole nother show. But we do need to talk about his ARPwave and how he's relieving pain without surgery and pills. Okay, we're back. We don't have long. You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with Jean-Paul Francoeur, a personal trainer, an ARPwave therapist, and a founder of JP Fitness. I was going to talk to him about the different kinds, this CrossFit craze and aerobics and yoga and Pilates and Paya and Zumba and bar and swimming. And my favorite new guy, I wonder if you know this guy, Mark Ripito program.
Oh, yeah. Know him well. Yeah. Oh, that's like, I used a lot of those principles in my training.
Well, my daughter went down and trained with him in Dallas.
No kidding.
Her husband gave her a weekend with him in Dallas, Texas for Christmas.
Guy. Amazing trainer. One of the people I truly respect in the industry.
Well, listen, I didn't think at my age, which is 60 years old, that you would be able to build muscle at my age. I thought everything at my age would be just about holding on to what you've got. But when she got back from his training camp and she started training me, she's putting muscle on me.
That's
great. And she's repairing things that, I thought maybe
just had to live with.
Plantar fasciitis, you just got to live with it. Carpal tunnel from the computers, you just got to live with it. Not if you start doing this. He believes in very few repetitions, like 5, with maximum weight. Which is kind of different from a lot of trainers for older people. They think you should do 15 reps of lightweight.
No.
And it just wears out your joints.
Well, and worse than that, I mean, I remember the big trend when I was, training was, if you're training someone who's older, the senior citizen places, they all do this, they call it super slow training. They try to make people do these like 15-second reps or 10-second reps. They're trying to make them go real slow. And also, just to make sure that they don't do any damage, they don't hurt them. They make sure they're sitting on these machines where they're all strapped in, God forbid they actually, you recruit a stabilizing muscle, So,
yeah, right.
So, that's one of the things I like about when you're lifting heavy weights, you have to recruit a lot of stabilizing muscles. And so that's the thing is injury. Anytime you have pain, you have weakness somewhere. You have some muscle that is not doing its job and it's creating, compensations that cause pain. So,
and he puts a lot of physics behind his weightlifting. Where you put your eyes, where you put your hands, how your wrist is bent, where your knees go, where your feet go. I mean, because he's not going to. He wants you to lift his maximum amount of weight, but he wants you to do it perfectly.
You may not have realized I was using some of those concepts when I was training you, but that was he was one of my he was somebody I really admired and used his training stuff.
And the other thing that I just learned, even though I've worked out with you 20 years ago and all that, but I just never put it all together. But when you stress a muscle like that, you build cartilage, and that a lot of problems with people's backs, spines, their wrists, their feet, their knees, is their loss of cartilage.
Well, again, it all really comes back to lack of strength. Muscle
pulls against your cartilage and builds your cartilage. I didn't know you could build cartilage.
If you have osteoporosis, your bone density, your cartilage tissue, all that stuff, all your connective tissue it requires tension on the bone to be healthy. Your bones require a little bit of tension to be healthy.
I don't think people realize you can grow your cartilage back. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, I don't know about grow.
How do you say it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it just depends. Like if you have something torn, you may not necessarily grow it back. But here's the thing: you also may not necessarily need that. If your muscles know how to fire correctly and in the right sequence. You actually, they're just hinges. You really actually don't necessarily need them. I've rehabbed people who've had total tear of the meniscus, total, like it's gone, and they are able to golf, play tennis, hunt, everything. Yeah,
you were training people at Alotian Golf Club.
Officially, I guess I was the golf performance and functional training specialist, which means basically that I was, doing a lot of, warming up of golfers. But it was a neat experience. I really loved it there. I loved the people. I loved the experience. It was a great course. It was a beautiful place. And,
but we've got 10 minutes left, and I know you want to talk about your new passion. ARPwave is your new passion. Yeah. What is that?
Well, we call it ARPwave. Well, ARP stands for Accelerated Recovery Performance. In a nutshell, it is a system where I use a particular type of electrical current. But it's not like a stem that you would see like in a physical therapy or chiropractor's office. It uses a specific type of electrical current. It uses direct current, which is similar to the way our own nervous system works. And I can use this to identify the neurological origins of pain. So, for example, your back hurts. You go to the doctor. The doctor treats your back. They treat the structure that's causing where you feel like you've got pain, but that's not what's causing the pain. That's where the pain ended up. So they go and inject you. They send you to physical therapy, and you do all this stuff, and your back might start feeling a little bit better, but the problem keeps kind of creeping back. I use an analogy. I call that starting at the third domino. You're trying to fix someone's back, but you're not looking back far enough. And with what I do, I can identify where it started. So basically, their problem might have started from a pebble in your shoe. And, it makes you walk differently. And as you're walking differently, you use your hips incorrectly. And then your hips, using your hips incorrectly, you load your spine the wrong way, and eventually you end up with lower back pain. Well, they're treating you for the back pain. And the reason it's not going to ever go away and stay gone is because you got to go back and pull that pebble out of the shoe. You got to go back to the first domino and figure out what started it all. And so what we do is we go to what started the problem, where that initial neurological disconnect took place. And so we turn those muscles back on.
And you find it with this machine?
Well, it's a process that I call, we affectionately refer to as search and destroy. So we say,
sounds like a video game.
It's sort of an intimidating title. I almost don't know if I like telling people. I almost feel like I should make up another name, but just so I don't scare off people. But it really is kind of a good description.
I like the domino theory. You go back to the beginning.
Yeah, we go back to what caused it.
It's hard to identify what it is.
No, it's actually quite easy. So I've got a couple of pads and I'm searching. I'm using one as a ground, and I'm searching with the other pad. It's an electrode. It's an electrode.
Oh, okay.
So I'm basically lawnmower searching your body. I've got a current going through you. I've got a pretty high load going into you. But if your muscle tissue is healthy, you just feel kind of a tingling. But what it's doing, in essence, is eliciting a load to the brain. So it's just sending a signal to the brain that makes your brain think it's loading it. Now, if your tissue's healthy, it just kind of tingles. Your brain says, "Oh, I'm okay with that." But if I get onto an area where if I move into a spot where your body just really reacts and you're trying to pull away from it, that tells me your brain is trying to protect you. It's going immediately into sort of a defensive mode, and it basically magnifies your compensation patterns. So like your back is hurting you, and I'm searching you, and I find that you just react, you jump off the table when I'm searching your ankles. Well, your problem wasn't necessarily starting in your back. I'll search the back, and most of the time, in fact, never have I found, the origin of the problem to be where they feel the pain. So they're like wanting me to treat where they feel the pain. But the crazy thing is 98% of the time in the first session that I do with someone, I can eliminate, great deal. It can just knock their pain in half, So, and in some cases,
okay, so you've identified the pain. Now, how do you eliminate it?
Okay, so once we identify it, I know where to treat. And so I basically set them up, with the pads in the correct places. I use the second pad to find out what spot is, quote unquote, talking to the first spot. What spot was shut down as a result of that original neurological disconnect. And when I find those spots, I coach you through a very basic sort of foundation exercise type thing. Like if it's your back, I might have you do a sit and stand in a chair. And I'm going to teach you and coach you how to properly sit in a chair and stand back up. And, you think it's simple, but people just don't realize that most people lower themselves using their quads. And so I teach them how to properly sit by pulling themselves into position by using their hamstrings and their glutes, and then how to stand up very quickly and stand up without leaning forward and without rocking and without doing all the different things that we do. Now, here's the cool thing. Like your back is killing you, and when I've got this on the correct hot spots, that I go back to a really light load, so the output is basically like the load. I'm sending a signal, sort of a motor learning signal, faster than the brain can send it, so I can accelerate the motor learning process. I'm sending it about 250 times faster than the brain can do it, and it's the correct signal. And then while I coach you through correct movements, I'm reinforcing those proper postures, and I'm turning the right muscles back on. And literally, like the very first time you go through this, your pain starts to disappear. And
is it because the physics of how a body works is how you can correct it?
Well, it's still taking a lot of training. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I'm learning something new every day. And I still get, I'm a puzzle solver, so I still have challenging cases, and I've had some that are very slow to resolve. But most of the time, it's they're pretty standard. Somebody comes into me, they're a golfer, they have medial epicondylitis or something like that.
Well, everybody has plantar fasciitis. How about that one?
Yeah, that's an easy fix. I actually don't do the first 4 sessions in that. I do what's called a foot bath. Basically, I have you stand on a lead. It's in a bucket of warm water. It's kind of like, right out of Lethal Weapon, the rusty mattress and the car batteries, but it's, I'm just kidding. But,
that's scary.
Yeah. But the thing is, this signal it promotes healing. It drives a lot of blood supply into the area. It starts to turn an area back on. So like when you have an area that it hasn't been getting adequate blood supply and nerve signal for a long time, and because it's just shut down. So the compensation pattern is what's caused the pain. Right. I'm able to get you moving correctly. And so not only when you get fixed, not only are you out of pain, but you actually feel you're bursting with energy because your body suddenly...
So you don't just teach people how to stand up correctly. You also do something that actually repairs it.
Yes. It's actually repairing. They're basically, the body's really intelligent, knows how to fix itself.
And you can repair it with these electric waves.
I'm facilitating the body's ability to heal itself. Yeah.
That is so cool. Any words of advice on how do people get in touch with you?
On my business number, which just happens to be myself.
Text me.
Texting is actually the best method because I get a lot of calls, spam calls, and if I don't recognize the number, I generally don't answer it. So texting 501-952-5735.
Say it again.
501-952-5735. And my email is jp@jpfitness.com.
Same as it's always been.
Yeah, same as it's always been.
For 35 years. And we'll put all his links and stuff up there.
I'm not that old, hey.
I think it's been about that long.
Okay, maybe.
Look, I know you're a health nut, but for birthing all the different businesses you birthed, you get a cigar. That came from the Humidor Room at the Colonial Wine and Spirits on Markham Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. You probably won't smoke it, but you might give it to someone.
Regift it.
You regift it. Who's our guest next week, Tim?
Next week, it's going to be Larry Graham from Graham & Associates.
Oh, he was the secretary-treasurer on the Dreamland Ballrooms board, and he's the nephew of Edwin Brewer, the grandson of Adrian Brewer, and they made a lovely art donation that we're going to be displaying May the 4th, and he is going to come and talk about his family legacy. 3 generations of Arkansas artists, famous Arkansas artists. Thank you, JP, very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. If you have a great entrepreneurial story you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. Send a brief bio and your contact info to questions@upyourbusiness.org, and someone will be in touch. And finally, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with me. If you think this program has been about you, you're right, but it's also about me. Thank you for letting me fulfill my destiny. My hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that it, whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next Friday. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you miss any part of the show or want to learn more about UIYB, go to flagandbanner.com and click on Radio Show. Like us on Facebook or subscribe to her weekly podcast wherever you like to listen. All interviews are recorded and posted the following week with links to resources you heard discussed on today's show. Underwriting opportunities available upon request. Kerry's goal is to help you live the American dream.